What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a super special review. We've got the Franco Serblin Accordos. Look, usually I don't review speakers this high end on my channel for a couple of reasons, and we're gonna get into why I am reviewing these, because there's a few things about these that are super special. They do some things that in the high end is generally rare in my experience, and we're going to talk about it. So look, for the most part, we're going to do this review the same way we generally do. Let me get those main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. I will tell you about some standout features that I feel are unique about the speaker and what sets them apart. I'll tell you, I want to kind of try to establish what the benefit is when you step into this price category. I think there's some people that maybe set up their system, 5 or 10 years ago. Maybe your speakers right now are $2,000 or $3,000. You've got some extra cash burning a hole in your pocket, and you're wondering like, hey, what can I expect from, a pretty sizable upgrade, right? We'll get into that. Of course, I'll tell you what the speakers sound like. I'll take you through the treble, the mid-range, the bass, and so on. Talk about some amplifier pairing, and then we'll wrap up the video. So first, let me say this. When I tell you how the speaker compares to more affordable stuff, that does not diminish the value of more affordable stuff. Speakers that are $2,000 or $3,000 are fantastic. And if I tell you the Serblin does something just exceptionally better than something more affordable, please don't take that as offense. Porsche 911 is a fantastic car. The Pagani Huayra is way better in every single way, and that does not diminish anything of the Porsche 911, okay? So do keep that in mind. Now, standout features, cabinetry, absolutely insane, breathtakingly beautiful, the finest woodwork I have ever seen. Whatever descriptor you want to use to describe craftsmanship, meticulous workmanship. I mean, look, this is the best looking wood thing ever made I've seen, okay? That's the best way I can describe it. I've never seen something made of wood look so darn good. My understanding is there's just 2 people that make these speakers from start to finish. They're handmade in Italy. The grill, a little bit of a unique design. It's made out of strings that are meticulously placed at the edges. They're a little bit more densely packed. And then down the middle where the drivers are, they open up a little bit. And for those of you that feel like that grill looks a little bit familiar, maybe you've seen it on a Sonos Faber speaker. Well, Franco Serblin was the original founder of Sonos Faber. He would later step aside to launch Franco Serblin, the separate brand where he could just do his own thing and make speakers from the heart, passionately, just without anyone stopping him or slowing him down. And it shows. When I was listening to the Serblin Accordos, you could almost feel the passion and the love that went into the speakers. And I know that might sound a little bit silly or gimmicky, but listen, I'm telling you my experience. When I sat back and I listened to them, that's the way I would describe it. I heard the love that went into designing and assembling these speakers. I did. Anyway, some other unique things. You got a left and right speaker. Because of the way the ports are oriented, you want to make sure that left speaker's on the left side of the room and that right speaker's on the right side of the room. The crossover is not in the cabinet, it's in the stands. The stands are included, of course, and you must use them. And that's okay because they are absolutely beautiful. I would like to see perhaps maybe in the future if these become like more popular, because at this price point, they're not selling thousands and thousands of units a month, right? But if these become more popular, I'd love to see like an option to get those crossovers in a module for those few people that want to use their own stands. Anyway, what else is unique about them? I swear I'm leaving something off here. I don't think I am. Anyway, they come in 2 colors, a walnut wood finish. Well, they're both wood finishes, but the walnut finish and then a gray wood finish. Both are exceptionally beautiful. Let me tell you what they sound like. Look, this is essentially a high-end speaker without any of the high-end fusses, and that's the main reason I was happy to review these. Usually I stay away from reviewing anything over $10,000 because speakers in that price category generally are going to rip apart the recording. Unless you listen to specialty music, super high-end recordings, audiophile tracks, it's going to just rip into your recordings, and it's tough to enjoy normal music. That's where the Serblins are different. Another area where they're different than the normal high-end offerings is Generally, again, speakers above $10,000 are very sensitive to placement. They have to be meticulously placed in the room. In fact, it's not uncommon when you spend more than $10,000 on a pair of speakers, the dealer may just come to your home and set them up for you. A lot of times that's included in the price. Listen, the Serblins are not fussy with placement at all. Don't get me wrong. They sound really good. You just plop them down. You dial them in, they're going to sound a lot better. So, of course, still, make your small adjustments, but they were not fussy with placement. That really surprised me. The last thing, most speakers above $10,000 are very fussy with connected equipment. Again, the Serblins did not seem to mind what kind of amplifiers I connected to them. They played beautiful music no matter what. If the source was poorly recorded, more affordable amplifier, the Serblins don't care. They're a high-end speaker without any of the high-end fuss, and that was super cool. So those of you that are like, oh, I see you're reviewing something super expensive, are you going to review like the Focal Sopras sometime? No, because I don't want a speaker that's going to rip apart every recording. I like to enjoy my music, and not all of my music is audiophile music, right? So hats off in that arena. I'll tell you guys this. I went through almost my entire playlist because I've had these for about 60 days. There was not a single track I had to skip. And I listen to some dirty music. Look, I listen to some audiophile recordings, don't get me wrong, but some of my music is very dirty. Think like, any like just old death metal, right? Like Arch Enemy, All That Remains. Those are not well recorded. Cradle of Filth. It's really messy. The Serblins had no problem. Even some older Smashing Pumpkins, a little bit rough on the ears sometimes. Not with the Serblins. It did not rip apart any of my recordings. Yet at the same time, it is detailed enough for those of you that want to hear almost the movement of the singer's mouth. The Serblins will convey that. So in the top end, they've been able to strike a balance of fidelity, detail retrieval, openness, extreme effortlessness. Holy crap. It doesn't sound like the music is coming from the speaker. It's just appearing in the air. And it's really a beautiful experience. It's a little bit tough to describe. Some of the things the Serblin does, unless you experience it for yourself, it's a little bit hard to put into words. Much like, another car analogy, if you will. For those of you that aren't into cars, I'm sorry, but I am. Those are the analogies I'm going to use. Most people have driven a car with a few hundred horsepower. Most cars have a few hundred horsepower. Most people have driven a car that's a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? Something like a Ford Mustang, right? With a V8 in it, 420 horsepower, I believe. Very few people have driven a car with 800 or 900 horsepower. I have. And let me tell you, I could sit here and tell you a car with 800, 900 horsepower is really, 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 really fast, really, really exciting, scary, pushes you near the back of the seat. It is so fast, you will not even look at the speedometer because you cannot take your eyes off the road even for a second. And unless you experience it firsthand, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You'll have no idea because it is an experience that is almost impossible to put into words. Almost like if you've never had A5 Wagyu, right? Those of you that have been lucky enough to experience real A5 Wagyu, how do you describe it? How would you describe that to someone that's never had A5 Wagyu? You can't. It's just, to them, it's just going to sound like you're talking about a really, really, really good steak. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's get back into the speakers. Sorry, I know I went off on a little tangent there, but I felt it was important to explain that because I want to encourage those of you that are, most of you guys are watching this for entertainment. Welcome aboard. No problem. I'm here for that. Some of you might be watching this because you've had your eye on these. You're thinking about buying these. If the dealer is nearby, go visit them. Go listen. Trust me. But some of the stuff, let's talk about that mid-range. Oh, the treble, ever so slightly on the forward side of neutral. I was able to listen to 2.5 hours, no problem, no fatigue. Moving down to the mid-range, again, that extreme effortlessness is there. That extreme separation, from the bass all the way up to the treble. Separation, absolutely phenomenal on this speaker. And here's the interesting thing. This is an area, again, where it's different from other higher-end speakers. Usually, super expensive speakers, most of them have really, really good separation. The problem is some of them have so much separation that it's there's a ton of detail and micro detail and air and spaciousness, and it sounds like every single piece of the music was recorded separately and is being played back on its own little mini speaker, and it lacks cohesion and musicality. It's too separate. It's almost sterile. The Serblin Accordos are able to match that level of separateness, air, and spaciousness around every single note without losing the cohesion that makes it musical and enjoyable. Again, this is a proper high-end speaker without any of the high-end fusses. Hats off in the mid-range. It's a little bit on the warmer side, tonally rich, a little bit romantic, if you will. Depth was incredible. One thing I love about the Franco Serblin Accordo is this. Most speakers, right? They either will project the singer into the room quite a bit, or the singer will be just right between the speakers, or some speakers will have the singer a little bit further back from the speakers, portraying more of a sense of depth. The Serblins don't do any of that. What they do is what's in the recording, meaning if you have a recording that does place the singer forward of the speakers, the Serblins will do that. If the recording places the singer between the speakers, that's what the Serblins will convey. And if the recording portrays the singer further back, that is what the Franco Serblin Accordos will convey. There's so much dimensionality to that mid-range, to that depth. Of course, width and height are phenomenal. Any word you want to use for soundstage, imaging, the Serblins are absolutely impeccable. I had no complaints in the mid-range. I absolutely loved it. Moving down to the bass, this was the highest quality bass I've ever heard from a speaker. It's just that simple. The leading edges had so much clarity and nuanced detail to them. It was shocking, right? When again, I've already told you some of the music I listen to is a little bit dirty, okay? Of course, I have my audiophile tracks, but again, the Serblin, very detailed in the bass. Electronic music, right? If you listen to electronic music, it's synth bass. The Serblins will show you it's synth bass. You'll be able to tell it's artificial, but again, not so much so that you can't enjoy the music. And here's the cool thing. That same like bass clarity and nuanced detail and definition in the leading edges when you play like a real instrument, like a bass guitar, a cello, wow. I mean, it conveys it so well. This is why I said when I was listening to these speakers, I felt like they were made with love. And again, I know that sounds silly. I get it. But that was my experience, you know, extremely high quality bass, no mid bass bump, very full bass too, despite how small the speaker is. It's not a Dynaudio Special 40. Let's just be clear here. It's not a bass boosted speaker, but the lower frequencies had some heft, depth, and weight to them I was not expecting. I could definitely see some people being very satisfied with the speaker without using any subwoofer. And I could also see some people wanting to use a subwoofer. I personally almost always use a subwoofer. Half of my listening impressions I didn't, half of my listening impressions I did. And when I did, I chose to use the Rel T7X pair. Tonally, that was the best match to the Serblins. The Rel TX series has a lot of good detail and definition in that leading edge of the bass, and so do the Serblins, and it was a match made in heaven. I loved it. So I've told you what they sound like. Let me tell you where some areas are that they just are leaps and bounds above more normal speakers in, say, the $2,000 to $3,000 price category. And again, this is not diminishing $2,000 or $3,000 speakers. I love $2,000 and $3,000 speakers. I own many of them. The Serblin just cost a lot more, and you get a lot more. So we'll also talk about if it's worth it in a little bit. I think some of you guys are going to ask me that in the comments. So speakers that are like $2,000 or $3,000, like the Bucard S400, you know, your Sonus Faber Sonetto 2s, Dynaudio Special 40s, you know, Fritz Carbon 7 SE Mark 2s. You know, there's a ton of them, and most of them are really good. But they cannot convey the effortlessness in the treble the way the Franco Serblin Accordos can. There's such a difference in that one category, the effortlessness. It's a different experience. Most speakers in that price category, when you're listening to them, in fact, all of them, I would say, the sound you may be able to trick yourself into thinking like, oh no, it doesn't sound like it's coming from the speaker, this and that. And there are times where even my own $2,000 or $3,000 speakers, I'm like, man, it's like amazing. But then you put these up and it's different. It's a different kind of amazing. It's amazing on another level. Again, much like if you drove a car with 500 horsepower, it would be fast as hell. If you hopped in a car with 900 horsepower afterwards, it wouldn't mean the 500 horsepower car was slow, but 900 horsepower is very different than 500 horsepower, you know. The level of effortlessness is just completely different from the Serblins. A few other things that are different are the balance of detail retrieval and musicality. That was something that I usually don't hear in lower price categories. That was very good, though there are some speakers that can do that. I will admit that. Moving down to the mid-range, that same effortlessness continuing. Again, that's not something you usually see in the $2,000 to $3,000 price category. Even the speakers with the best mid-range cannot have the spaciousness and separation that something like the Franco Serblin Accordos have. Then lastly, moving down to the bass, that clear definition in the leading edges, the speed in the transients, the note-to-note distinction is simply on another level. So ultimately, it's just this simple. If you've got speakers that are $2,000 or $3,000 and you're looking for a significant upgrade, you've got some disposable income, I think it's safe to say everything is better. Seriously, everything is better when you step up to something like the Franco Serblin Accordos. And again, I love affordable stuff, guys, so no one get mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth, okay? It is. So let's talk about amplifiers real quick, and then I'll tell you, the whole value, is it worth it stuff. I used a lot of amplifiers, and again, I discovered the Franco Serblin Accordos are not picky with amplification. They're not. The most affordable amplifier I would recommend is actually very affordable considering the price of the speakers at roughly $1,800. The new Kinky Studio Choco Ime. This was a fantastic match. The Choco Ime is a very, very good amplifier. I wouldn't recommend most amplifiers under $2,000 for speakers that are over $14,000, but the Choco Ime is a very, very good amplifier. It's a proper high-end amplifier in every sense of the word, and it sounds fantastic. We'll review that amplifier later. The Hagel H190, fantastic pairing. A little bit smoother in the treble with the Hagel H190. That's what it does, and I like that because it allows me to listen even longer. I was able to listen for about 2 hours to the Serblins, like without any issues. And with the Hagel H190, I was able to like push to like 3 hours, no problem if I wanted to. That's a good pairing. Thomason Stereo's Galleon tube amplifier was an excellent pairing. That added more depth, more dimensionality. Being a tube amp, it gave that more holographic sound that you feel like you can reach out and touch. The Serblins pretty much do that even without a tube amplifier, but adding a tube amplifier it does give you more body to the sound overall. I also, of course, used my Kinky Studio separates. Those are about $6,000, and that was another excellent pairing, especially for lower volume listening. But, being separates with monoblock amplifiers, they could, of course, drive the Serblins to extremely loud volumes when needed. Let's talk about sensitivity real quick. I didn't find the Serblins to be very difficult to drive at all. I wouldn't say they're very, very easy to drive, nor would I say they're difficult to drive. I would say they're very normal to drive. I'd say if you got an honest 20 to 30 watts or more, you should be fine. And 20 watts, like tube amp 20 watts, not class AB 20 watts. So yeah, this is the review, guys. Breathtakingly good in every way. Any part of sound you have a question about, the answer is breathtakingly good. That's how good the Serblins are. Are they worth it? Look, man, it's this simple. Walk up to a guy in a Ferrari next time you see one and ask him if the car is worth it. What do you think his answer is going to be? His answer is going to be yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's that simple. Expensive products are generally worth it to the people that can afford them. Usually, it's been my experience that people start to overjudge or say things aren't worth it right around the area where their budget runs out. It's a bad habit a lot of people have, and I don't like it. Look, I can't afford something like a Pagani Huayra, right? It's an extremely expensive car. I think they're like $1.3 million. I'm not going to say it's not worth it just because I can't afford it. I'm sure the damn car is worth every single penny. I just can't afford it. The Serblins, I think, are worth every penny. I really do. Now, look, if you don't like to spend what these cost, there's more affordable stuff out there, guys. It's totally okay. And you can put together a badass system with a lot of different speakers that are much more affordable. Will you get this kind of depth, this kind of imaging, this kind of effortlessness? No, you won't, right? And it's the same in other hobbies. I just don't know why in audio that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. I'm into boating too, right? Me and my friends go boating all the time in the summer. It's a lot of fun. You want to go fast on the water, you got to spend money. It's a simple equation. The more you spend, the faster your boat will go. There's no cheap way to go fast on the water. There just isn't. Like, straight up, you know? And it's the same in most hobbies, you know? Are there affordable boats that are decently quick? Yes, of course. Are there affordable boats that could do 120 miles an hour on the water? No. They're just, it doesn't exist. That's a combination of things that can't happen. And this combination of effortlessness in its presentation, refinement, yet not being fussy at all with anything, this thing's a damn unicorn. I love it. Look, I think I've ranted on enough. And I hope no one felt like I dodged the "are they worth it" question. The simple answer to me is yes, I think they're absolutely worth it. If you got any questions, this YouTube channel does have a free Discord. By the way, these speakers were provided by the US distributor Access Audio. Special thank you to them. This is my first time working with them. They seem like good people, for whatever that's worth. This YouTube channel does have a free Discord, as I said. Feel free to hop in that bad boy if you have complicated questions. If you have simple questions, you can ask them in the YouTube comments section. If you do join my Discord, please be courteous. You know, don't be a meanie to anyone. No one likes that. Yeah. I think I've told you everything I wanted to tell you about the Franco Serblin Accordo bookshelf speaker. It's remarkably, I can't say that word, exceptionally. It's exceptionally well made. We'll go with that. It sounds extremely good. It's very satisfying to look at and listen to. And ultimately, it's a high-end speaker, a proper high-end speaker without any of the high-end fusses. And that's my review. Until next time, later.